The neon sign of Miller's Gas and Go buzzed and flickered against the Pennsylvania night sky, casting uneven shadows across the empty parking lot. Inside, 17-year-old Belle Jackson wiped down the counter for the third time that hour. Her movements automatic, her mind elsewhere. The wall clock read 11:23. 37 more minutes until she could lock up, walk the 6 blocks home, and collapse into bed before her Saturday morning shift at the library. Belle had worked at Miller's for 8 months now, ever since her mother's hours got cut at the hospital. Every dollar she earned went into a mason jar labeled Temple University Pre-Law in her neat, careful handwriting. The jar sat on her dresser at home, slowly filling with her future. She was meticulous about everything. Her uniform was always pressed, her natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, her name tag perfectly straight. She believed that if she did everything right, followed every rule, worked harder than everyone else, the world would eventually be fair to her. Tonight would teach her otherwise. The bell above the door chimed, and Belle looked up with her practiced customer service smile. It died on her lips. 3 boys from Riverside Prep swaggered in, their letterman jackets announcing their status before they even opened their mouths. She recognized them immediately. Chase Rutherford led the pack, all swagger and entitlement, his blonde hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. Behind him came Tyler and Mason, his perpetual shadows, laughing too loudly at something only they understood. Belle's stomach tightened. She'd seen them before, usually during day shifts when her manager was around. They were the type who'd knock over displays and leave without buying anything, treating the store like their personal playground. But it was different now, with the store empty and the night pressing against the windows like something alive and watching. "Evening," Belle said, her voice professional and neutral. "Let me know if you need help finding anything." Chase ignored her completely, heading straight for the beer cooler at the back. His friends fanned out through the aisles, and Belle heard the unmistakable sound of merchandise being deliberately knocked to the floor. She took a slow breath, reminding herself that her shift ended in 35 minutes. She could clean up after they left. It wasn't worth the confrontation. But then Chase appeared at the counter, a case of craft beer in his arms, and Belle knew the night was about to get complicated. "Ring it up," Chase said. Not asked, commanded. Belle looked at the beer, then at his face. He couldn't have been older than 18. "I'll need to see some ID," she said calmly. The store went silent. Tyler and Mason stopped their destruction mid-aisle, turning to watch. Chase stared at her as if she'd just spoken in another language, his expression shifting from surprise to something darker. "Excuse me?" Chase's voice dropped an octave. "Store policy," Belle replied, keeping her hands visible on the counter, her posture professional. "I need valid identification showing you 21 or older to purchase alcohol." Chase leaned forward, invading her space across the counter. "Do you know who I am?" "That doesn't change Pennsylvania law," Belle said quietly. What Belle didn't know, which she couldn't have known, was that tucked in the back corner of the store, past the broken ice cream freezer and the restrooms that always smelled faintly of bleach, was a small seating area. The store had once been a truck stop diner before Miller bought it cheap and converted it. The old dining section remained, cordoned off with caution tape and stacked boxes, supposedly under renovation, but actually just abandoned and forgotten. And in that forgotten space, exhausted from a charity ride for veterans, 35 members of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club had pulled in 2 hours ago. They'd asked permission from the evening manager to rest in the closed section, and he'd agreed, grateful for the implied security their presence provided in this rough neighborhood. They'd been so quiet, so respectful, that Belle had completely forgotten they were there. The bikers were mostly older men, Vietnam and Gulf War veterans with weathered faces and eyes that had seen too much. Their leader, a man everyone called Sergeant, though he'd been out of the Marines for 20 years, had strict rules about conduct. They kept to themselves, didn't cause trouble, and sure as hell didn't tolerate anyone who picked on people who couldn't fight back. They were there now, in the shadows, watching through the gaps in the stacked boxes, watching as Chase Rutherford's face turned red with indignation. "My father," Chase said slowly, as if speaking to a child, "is District Attorney Marcus Rutherford. This store? My dad plays golf with the owner every Sunday. So I'm gonna say this one more time. Ring. Up." Belle felt her heart hammering against her ribs, but her hands remained steady. "Without proper identification, I cannot sell you alcohol. If you'd like to purchase something else." Chase's hand shot out. He grabbed the stack of lottery tickets on the counter and flung them at Belle's face. The glossy paper scattered like confetti, and one edge caught her cheek, stinging. "That's what I think of your policy," he spat. Tyler laughed from somewhere behind her, and Belle heard the distinct sound of glass breaking. Her head whipped around to see him deliberately sweeping bottles of wine onto the floor, the red liquid spreading across the white tile like blood. "Oops," Tyler said, grinning. "Looks like you've got a mess to clean up. Better get to it. Help." The word hit Belle like a slap. Not employee, not young lady. Help. The historical weight of that word in that tone wasn't lost on her. She felt something crack inside her chest, not breaking but shifting, like a fault line preparing for an earthquake. "You need to leave," Belle said. Her voice was quieter now, but there was steel in it. "I'm asking you to leave the store." "Or what?" Mason chimed in, filming everything on his phone. "You'll call the cops?" "Go ahead. Tell them Chase Rutherford was being refused service by an aggressive employee. See how that works out for you." Chase vaulted over the counter with the casual athleticism of someone who'd never faced consequences for anything. Belle stumbled backward, her spine hitting the cigarette display. He was in her space now, in the small area that was supposed to be hers. And the store suddenly felt very small and very far from help. "You're going to learn something tonight," Chase said. His breath sour with alcohol, Belle now realized he'd been drinking before he even arrived. "You're going to learn about respect, about knowing your place." He reached out and grabbed the bun at the back of her head, tugging it hard enough to make her eyes water. "What is this, anyway? Is this even real hair?" Belle's hands came up instinctively, trying to push him away, but he was bigger, stronger, and her resistance only seemed to amuse him. Tyler had jumped the counter now too, trapping her between them. Mason kept filming, providing commentary like this was all some hilarious prank video. "Stop," Belle said. Then louder, "Stop." Chase laughed. "Make me." What happened next occurred in the space between heartbeats. The sound came first, a low, rolling rumble like distant thunder, but it was coming from inside the store. The stack of boxes at the back shifted, then toppled as a figure emerged from the shadows. Sargent stepped into the fluorescent light of the store, and he looked like something carved from granite and bad decisions. He was 6'4", with a gray beard that fell to his chest and arms covered in faded military tattoos. Behind him, one by one, 34 more bikers emerged from the forgotten dining area. They formed a wall of leather and denim, of patches and scars, of men who'd been to war and back and didn't have much patience left for punks who hurt people for fun. Chase froze, his hands still tangled in Belle's hair. The color drained from his face as he took in the sheer number of men now filling the small store. They didn't rush forward. They didn't shout. They just stood there, a silent wall of judgment. And somehow that was more terrifying than any threat could have been. "Son," Sargent said, his voice quiet but carrying the authority of someone who'd commanded men in combat. "I'm going to need you to take your hand off that young lady. Right now." Chase released Belle so quickly she stumbled. He tried to step back, but Tyler was behind him, and Tyler was frozen in place, His earlier bravado evaporated like morning dew. Mason's phone clattered to the floor, the live stream still running, broadcasting everything to his 100-odd followers. We weren't, Chase stammered. It was just a joke. We were just messing around. Messing around, Sergeant repeated, as if tasting the words. He took one step forward. Just one. That what you call assault these days in your fancy prep school? A biker named Dutch moved to the door and flipped the lock, then turned the open sign to closed. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home was deafening in the silence. Nobody's leaving until we get a few things straight, Sergeant said. Belle stood against the cigarette display, her chest heaving, her hair half fallen from its bun. She'd never been so scared and so relieved at the same time. These men were strangers, outlaws by reputation, but they'd stepped in when no one else was there. When the law that Chase's father represented would have protected him, not her. Sergeant pulled out his phone. I'm no expert on technology, he said, but I'm pretty sure that there was live streaming this whole thing. Which means we've got about, he checked the screen, 270 people who just watched you assault this cashier. He looked at Belle. What's your name, miss? Belle, she whispered. Belle Jackson. Well, Belle Jackson, my name's Michael Torres, but most people just call me Sergeant. And these are my brothers from the Iron Wolves, MC. He gestured to the wall of bikers. We're going to make sure you get home safe tonight. But first, these boys are going to learn what accountability looks like. My father, Chase started. Your father, interrupted a biker named Reaper, his voice like gravel in a garbage disposal, is going to have a real hard time explaining away video evidence of his son committing assault and battery, especially when it goes viral. And trust me, kid, with this many witnesses, it's going viral. Tyler made a run for it, trying to push past the wall of bikers to reach the back door. He didn't make it 3 feet before Dutch caught him by the collar and gently but firmly guided him back to the center of the store. Ah, Dutch said. We're not done here. Sergeant crouched down, picking up the wine bottles Tyler had broken. This is going to cost money. Money that'll come out of Belle's paycheck if we don't handle this right. He looked at the 3 boys. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your parents. All 3 of you. Right now. And you're going to explain what you did. You can't make us, Mason said, but his voice shook. You're right, Sergeant agreed. I can't. But I can call the police myself and show them this video. The real police, not your daddy's golf buddies. The ones who have to answer to federal oversight after that corruption scandal last year. The ones who'd love to prove they're not giving special treatment to rich white kids anymore. He let that sink in for a moment. So what's it going to be? Belle watched as the 3 boys who'd swaggered in like they owned the world began to crumble. Chase's hand shook as he pulled out his phone. Tyler was crying silently, mascara from a girlfriend running down his face. Mason just stared at the floor, the reality of what he'd helped document finally hitting him. One by one, they made the calls. Belle listened as they stammered through explanations to angry parents, the lies they tried to tell falling apart under Sergeant's silent, unyielding stare. When they tried to minimize what happened, one of the bikers would helpfully play back the video. And the truth would come tumbling out. By the time Marcus Rutherford's black Mercedes screeched into the parking lot 20 minutes later, the store was full of parents. Tyler's mother, a severe woman in tennis whites, looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Mason's father, red-faced and blustering, deflated the moment he saw the video. But Marcus Rutherford was a different breed. He strode in wearing a suit despite the late hour, his jaw set, his eyes already calculating angles. Belle could see where Chase got his arrogance. The DI took in the scene, his son looking small and scared. The wall of bikers. Belle with her torn name tag and disheveled hair, and she saw him making decisions. Gentlemen, Marcus said smoothly. I'm sure we can resolve this misunderstanding without. There's no misunderstanding, Sergeant interrupted. Your son assaulted this young woman. We have video. We have witnesses. And thanks to his friend's live stream, we have about 3,000 people online who watched it happen in real time. Marcus's eyes flickered to Belle, and she saw something cold and calculating in them. Miss, I'm sure my son didn't mean to frighten you. Boys will be boys, and sometimes things get out of hand. What do you say we settle this quietly? My office could arrange a small compensation for your trouble, and we can all move on with our lives. The offer hung in the air like poison. Belle understood what he was really saying. Take the money. Sign the NDA. Disappear. Let my son face no consequences. Just like every other time she thought about the mason jar on her dresser. About how far that money could go toward her tuition. About how much easier her life would be if she just took it and stayed silent. The smart play, the safe play, was to take the deal. Belle looked at Sergeant. He wasn't pressuring her either way. He just stood there, solid as a mountain, his eyes telling her that whatever she decided, he and his brothers would back her up. She looked at the bikers, these strangers who'd stepped out of the shadows to help her, when they could have just as easily stayed hidden. Men society told her to fear, who'd proven themselves more honorable than the boy whose father ran the justice system. She turned back to Marcus Rutherford and spoke in a clear, steady voice. No, I'm not taking your money. Your son assaulted me, and I'm pressing charges. The DA's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing rage beneath. You're making a mistake, young lady. Do you have any idea how messy these things get? The lawyers, the depositions, the character assassination? By the time we're done, no one will hire you. Your college dreams? Gone. Is that really worth it? Yes, Belle said simply. Because if I let him get away with this, he'll do it to someone else. And maybe next time, there won't be 35 witnesses. Marcus's jaw clenched. He turned to Sergeant. And you? You really want to get involved in this? I know about your club. I know about the allegations, the investigations. You want to bring that heat down on yourself for some girl you don't even know? Sergeant smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. You know what I learned in the Marines, counselor? I learned that you don't leave people behind. Ever. You stand up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it costs you. That's called integrity. You might want to look it up. We'll see what the courts have to say, Marcus snapped. He grabbed Chase by the arm. Let's go. Actually, said a new voice from the doorway, I don't think so. Everyone turned to see a woman in a Pennsylvania State Police uniform standing in the entrance. She was holding a tablet, and Belle could see Mason's live stream playing on the screen. I'm Trooper Rodriguez. I happened to catch this live stream at the barracks. Funny thing about assault, when we have video evidence and multiple witnesses, it doesn't matter who your daddy is. She pulled out handcuffs. Chase Rutherford, you're under arrest for assault and battery. The next hour was a blur. Belle gave her statement while Chase was processed, his father raging impotently in the background about lawyers and lawsuits. Tyler and Mason were charged as accomplices. The store's overnight manager finally showed up, apologetic and grateful that the bikers had been there. By the time everything was sorted, it was 3 a.m. Belle stood in the parking lot, the adrenaline finally wearing off, leaving her shaky and exhausted. The bikers were mounting their motorcycles, preparing to continue their journey. Sergeant approached her one last time. You did good tonight, Belle. Took courage to stand up like that. I wouldn't have if you hadn't been here, Belle said honestly. Maybe, Sergeant agreed. Or maybe you would have. Sometimes we don't know how strong we are until being strong is the only choice we have. He reached into his vest and pulled out a card. That's got my number on it. And the number for a lawyer friend of mine Does pro bono work for situations like this? You're going to need help navigating what comes next. Belle took the card, her fingers trembling. Why? She asked. Why did you help me? You don't know me. Sargent looked back at his brothers, then at her. A long time ago, in a place very far from here, someone helped me when they didn't have to. Saved my life, actually. I made a promise that day that I'd pay it forward. That's what we do in the Wolves. We protect the pack. Even when the pack is just one scared kid standing alone against people who think power makes them untouchable. He swung his leg over his motorcycle. You're going to face heat for this, Belle. The Rutherfords have money, influence, friends in high places. They're going to try to make you back down. But remember tonight. Remember that you're not alone. Remember that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard. The 35 motorcycles roared to life in a symphony of thunder, and Belle watched as the Iron Wolves rode off into the pre-dawn darkness, their tail lights disappearing like red stars falling toward the horizon. She stood in the empty parking lot of Miller's Gas and Go, her torn uniform and disheveled hair evidence of the battle she'd survived. But she was standing, and she wasn't backing down. The mason jar for college would take longer to fill now, with lawyer fees and the very real possibility that Marcus Rutherford would make good on his threat to have her blacklisted from every job in town. But Belle had learned something tonight that no amount of money could buy. That integrity wasn't about being perfect or following every rule. It was about standing up when standing up mattered, especially when it cost you something. She locked up the store and walked home through the quiet streets as dawn broke over Pennsylvania. The card with Sargent's number clutched tight in her hand. She was scared, but she was also ready for whatever came next. In the following weeks, the video of that night exploded online. It was picked up by local news, then national. The narrative Marcus Rutherford tried to spin that Belle was a troubled employee who'd overreacted to harmless teenagers, collapsed under the weight of digital evidence. The live stream had been downloaded and backed up by thousands of people before it could be deleted. The biker's testimony was unshakable. Even other students from Riverside Prep came forward with their own stories of Chase's behavior. The case became a referendum on privilege, on justice, on what happened when systems designed to protect everyone instead protected the few. And Belle Jackson became the face of it all, not because she wanted to be, but because she'd refused to be silent. Chase Rutherford was convicted of assault. Tyler and Mason took plea deals. And Marcus Rutherford's re-election campaign died quietly, his corruption finally catching up with him when the spotlight was bright enough. The Iron Wolves MC started a scholarship fund in Belle's name, turning that one night of standing up into something that would help other kids like her for years to come. Belle did make it to Temple University, studying pre-law just like she'd always dreamed. And on the leather jacket she sometimes wore over her professional clothes, there was a small patch of Wolf's head, a gift from Sargent. A reminder that family wasn't always blood. That strength could come from the most unexpected places. And that doing the right thing was always worth it. Because sometimes the monsters wear Letterman jackets and perfect smiles. And sometimes the heroes wear leather and carry the scars of lives lived honestly. And sometimes, on a Tuesday night in a gas station in Pennsylvania, those worlds collide, and real justice wins.